Buddha.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hopefully, you're all having a good day. Hopefully, you're all having a good week. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I have a special guest with me here today. I have MLB official scorer and MLB historian Howie Karpin on the show today. Howie, how are you?
Good to be with you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming on the show and taking the time to spend with us here today on today's live stream. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you all for tuning in. Of course, make sure you all hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Share this channel out with everyone you know. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's continue growing this channel out so we can get this channel growing to the moon. So, Howie, how's your day going? How's the baseball season going? I know you've been involved with the sport for a very long time. I know you and I had a conversation a few days ago. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got involved in the game of baseball, and then we'll go from there.
Well, baseball is my passion. I love all sports, but baseball is special. I was a player in college for a year and played in the Bronx Sandlots for 10 years. Still play softball even at my age. And I've been fortunate to work in sports media for 45 years. And part of that job is covering the Yankees and the Mets in New York. So I've been a little bit of a part of the fabric of New York baseball for the past 45 years. In the past 26, I've been lucky enough to be a Major League Baseball official scorer. You know, I think we all dream about, becoming a major leaguer when we're young, if you love the sport. Obviously, I didn't have the skill to reach that level, but being a scorer, I'm part of a major league game, and I've been fortunate to be doing it for 26 years. I just did my 36th playoff game on Saturday, game one. And, I do the Yankees and the Mets. So we're lucky to have two teams in town to work. So we get double the chances that other cities get. And it's been a rewarding and wonderful experience over this time. I've been blessed. I've been fortunate. I've been lucky. I had the support of my family, and, it's gotten me to this point in my life. And luckily, I'm still continuing to do it.
Yeah, I mean, to have passion for something and to love what you're doing, that's got to be a great feeling. And I'm sure it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like, you're doing something that you love. And I'm sure each game that you get to score, or if you're not scoring, you're there. I'm sure it never gets old. It's always an exciting moment for you.
Yeah, well, I every day I appreciate that I get to walk into the ballpark for free. I get some privileges that the average fan doesn't get. I never take it for granted. I'm not that kind of person that think I'm entitled to all this stuff. I don't ask for favors from the ball clubs, very rarely ask for anything. Like I said, it's great to be there. I'm lucky I've gotten to see a lot of great moments over the years, some down moments as well. And, I've been fortunate to be in championship rooms when the Yankees have won and the Mets have won a pennant. So, that's something that I never dreamed I would ever be doing. I used to watch it on TV like in the 70s, and wondered what that kind of experience was. And I can tell you it's kind of crazy. You get a champagne bath even though you're not part of the team. But, like I said, I never take it for granted. I realize that I'm privileged in a lot of ways. And I just try and be humble about it. And if people want to talk to me about the sport, I'm always welcome, open to talking. I get that in my neighborhood. Sometimes there'll be a game where somebody saw me on TV, and then they'll give you a stare the next day, or they'll say, "Oh, I saw you on TV." And a lot of my friends get a kick out of it. They're always asking me to score plays at the softball games. And I kind of tell them I'm off the clock. I'm just here to enjoy myself. So it's been a very rewarding experience over the years, and I really appreciate what I've been able to do.
Oh, I'm sure. And you being involved in the sport for such a long time, you've seen a lot of greats play the sport of baseball. What was it like? For you coming up. You said, because you mentioned the '70s. What was it like coming up for you during that time up until now? Because you've seen the sport of baseball for where it was from when you first started to where it is today. The game has evolved a lot in some ways. Kind of walk us through, how do how would you compare today's game to when you were coming up?
Well, obviously, the difference is the advent of analytics and the way teams are being run nowadays. It's kind of gotten away from the fundamentals in a lot of ways. Where they're relying on more data than the gut in baseball. I grew up in the '60s. I saw Willie Mays. I saw Mantle. Bob Gibson. I mean, you name it. That was a wonderful time. You didn't get the same exposure you have now. Certainly, it was a lot different. And it's still baseball. When bottom line, when it comes down to it, and basically just the difference is the analytical approach. They're trying to come up with new formulas to try to get the so-called edge in the game, when in the old days you did it more by gut and instinct. So I think that's the biggest difference. Look, the players are more polished now. They're better athletically. Certainly medical advances have brought pitchers back. Pitchers that used to have their careers end now can come back a year or two later and things like that. So I think that's the biggest change. The analytical era that's come in the past 20 years or so. But it's still played on the field. It's still 90 feet bases, 60 feet 6 inches from the rubber to the batter's box. It's still the toughest single individual skill probably in all of sport. To hit a baseball coming at you at 95, 100 miles an hour. It's not maybe as physically demanding as football on a game-to-game basis, or even hockey or basketball. But you wear down over the 162 games. It can be mentally draining as well, because, you're set up to fail 7 out of 10 times. You do well 3 out of 10 times as a batter, you're doing well. So, the game has little intricacies that make it totally different and also more special than the other major sports as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you brought up analytics, and I know you and I, again, we talked a few days ago about it on the phone, and I have talked with a lot of former ball players on the show as well, and their view on analytics has not been positive. So it sounds like your view on analytics is not positive either, and I do understand, because I am in agreement with you that analytics does take away it does get away from the fundamentals and the basics of the game, and I feel like it focuses a lot on other things that players are not focusing on now. I feel like they're more focused on hitting the ball hard, and it's not about getting on base. It's not about getting the runners that are in scoring position, getting that base hit to score the run. And now it's just everybody's thinking. I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of players are thinking home run ball. They're more worried about exit velocity and things of that nature. So, so do you feel like with adding analytics, it's taken the fun away from the game?
I don't know if it's taking the fun away from the game. It's taking away some of the things that go into winning. In baseball, you can make the perfect pitch. A guy can put his bat on the ball, drop it in on the foul line, and win a game. I mean, you still did your job as a pitcher, but the batter somehow got his bat on. I think there's too much attempt to quantify every aspect of the game, and you just can't do it. And there's also too much scripting of each game now. Each game takes on its own identity. That's what I've learned over the years. It's never the same game. And there's a saying among a lot of baseball people, you never see the same game twice. There's always different aspects to it. And like I said, you can make the perfect pitch skill-wise, low and away. The guy can somehow put his bat on the ball, bloop it over the infield for the game-winning hit. There's no exit velocity there. It's certain things that they try and measure really don't add up to winning, in my opinion. And I think that a little bit of that has, made the sport, the teams are this season, if you look at it, there's no great teams. And it's been, overall, it's been like a middle of the road product in a lot of ways. So that, yeah, it makes for exciting times because the teams are competitive, but it also takes away from what used to be, the formulas for winning and the basic baseball formulas. A lot of teams play numbers instead of playing baseball like, it used to be played. So, look, you're never going to change it now. It's implemented. It's not going to change. So the better teams mix the fundamentals with the analytical formulas. Those are the teams that are going to be successful, the ones that mix it successfully.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, right? Is the mixing the fundamentals and the analytics, mixing those two and utilizing it the way you're supposed to. Because I feel like there might be some teams out there that are too analytically focused, and that's why some players don't perform the way they should, and because they're focusing on all the wrong things. That's my issue with analytics. I'm not really the biggest analytics person either. I mean, there's certain things that you can use, but when you're using too much analytics, like you said, it does take away from the fundamentals of the game. Now, in terms of analytics, right? We're talking analytics. There's been a lot of changes in baseball in terms of the rules and the playoff format. So just to start off with, like, the ghost runner in the extra innings, and then the pitch clock. These are things that have been implemented. How do you feel about these new rules that Major League Baseball has implemented?
Well, the pitch clock is fine. It has helped up, it has helped the pace of the game. It has sped it up. You're not sitting there watching batters step out of the box and walk around, for a long time, just delaying things. Although there are times that you kind of need to do that, almost take a reset in certain situations. But the pitch clock is fine. My problem with the ghost runner is I'd rather see it later on when the game starts to drag. I mean, my opinion, I'd like to see them play 3 regular extra innings and then use it in the 13th inning. I did a game in 2014, Yankees and Red Sox, 19 innings. As big a baseball fan as I am, and many of us are at the game, it does start to drag when it gets like to the 15th and the 16th, and you just want it to be over. So I can see using it later on, not so much in the 10th, play 3 real extra innings. And then when you get to the 13th, you start to use the designated runner at second base. So, in the beginning, I wasn't into it at all, but then I started to see why it was implemented. And again, I don't like to see it in the 10th. Look, you're not going to fight City Hall when it comes to these rules. You have to adapt. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Like, teams don't, with these new stolen base rules, number of teams are not taking advantage of it. Some teams are. So, look, you're not going to change the rules. You got to play by the rules. You got to learn to adapt. And the better teams are going to win. And those that adapt quickly are going to be the winning teams.
Understood. I do understand some of these rules that Major League Baseball is coming out with. I know they're trying to speed up the game. But what you're saying about the ghost runner in extra innings, just implement the ghost runner after playing a few innings, then you implement the ghost runner. Because in a game like that you were at 10 years ago with the Red Sox and Yankees, 19 innings. I mean, that's a little much. I mean, we're all fans of the sport, yes, but there's a point where it was just like, okay, we want this game. When is it going to come to an end? 19 innings, that does get a little ridiculous after a while.
Yeah, and also it wasn't much happening in those extra innings.
Right.
If it's one team scores and the next team answers, that makes it a little more exciting. But in that particular game, there wasn't a whole lot happening in those extra innings. So I can see where the runner on second, at least in the later innings, would lead to something happening. which would make it a little more interesting if you went into the length of those games. It's more like if you remember that Mets-Astros playoff game in '86, they would think it was a playoff game, so people were going to be riveted anyway. But things happened, like Billy Hatcher tied the game after the Mets had taken the lead in the extra innings. So things were happening. At least with the runner on second, there's a chance of things happening. But again, I'd rather just see the 3 real extra innings. Hopefully the game's decided there, because it gives a huge advantage to the home team when you have the runner on second. The road team can't play for 1 run unless they've really got a knockout closer that they haven't used in the game yet. The home team gets a huge advantage in those games with starting the runner at second. They only need to play for the 1 run. The road team can't really, they want to get the lead, but they really have to put up a crooked number to have a real good shot to nail down the win.
Yeah, and something, even with the ghost runner, the team that's at bat, they still have a hard time getting that 1 run in. And even if they get that 1 run in, once they go into the bottom of the 10th or bottom of the 11th, the other team has an opportunity to have a ghost runner as well. And if that game, they could easily tie up that game, or the game could be over. I feel like even now, with some of these rules that they're implementing, I mean, the game is still is as long as it has been. Like I feel like the games now, do you feel like they've been shortened? Or, I mean, I feel like they're still taking 3 hours, which hasn't changed. I know they were trying to get it less. I feel like they were trying to get it less than 3 hours, but that's taken it to the same amount of time with all these games taking as long as they are.
Well, the playoff games have taken 3 hours because you have those longer breaks in between innings, for one thing. But during the regular season, I only had maybe a couple of games where the time of the game was over 3. I mean, I did 45 games this year. I maybe had 2 games where I announced time of the game is 3 hours plus. Every other game was under 3. So, yeah, it's worked in that regard. And there seems to be a better pace to the actual game itself. So, yeah, I think that rule was really, something that needed to be done, at least to change up the pace. And I think it has increased the pace. It's put pressure on the pitchers and the batters, because you get violations. You don't want to get caught in a bad spot. Orlando Cabrera got called out on a violation in a game earlier this year. I think Manny Machado did early in the year for San Diego. You got to be more alert, more aware of what the situation is. So, yeah, I think it's worked in that regard.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's on my end. I probably haven't paid too much attention to the time during the regular season. It just feels like sometimes the games still take as long. But you're more involved in it than I am. You're there, so I mean you keep track of this stuff. So with the pitch clock, I wanted to ask you, because this is a question I ask any guest that I have on the show. Do you think the pitch clock has played a role in injuries to pitchers?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
No, I don't. I really don't. I think it's in their head a little bit. I don't think it's contributed to a physical injury. I think some pitchers need to speed up their pace. They'll throw more strikes. There's always been a feeling among baseball people of getting in a rhythm. I think pitchers need to get in a rhythm, not stand around, like take so much time in between. Used to be a guy, his name was Joaquin Benoit, reliever, I think, he pitched for a number of teams. He took forever to throw the ball. Steve Traxel used to pitch with the Mets. They took forever to throw the ball. You want to get in a rhythm, and pitchers, when they're in a rhythm, they throw more strikes. So, yeah, I don't think it's had a physical effect on the pitching.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because that's a question that I ask again every guest that I have on the show, because there's been some talk amongst fans or amongst people saying that the pitch clock has played a role, at least in some of these injuries to pitchers. And there's been an alarming number of pitchers that have gotten hurt this season. So
part of that is they just throw hard. Does Jacob deGrom need to throw 100 miles an hour in the first inning? Pitchers used to pace themselves to get into the 6th and 7th. Now they tell you, oh, just leave it out there as long as you can and we'll go get you. That's part of what's happened in the analytical era that's contributed to the pitcher's injuries, not so much the pitch clock. They don't need to throw. You don't need to throw 102 miles an hour to get a guy out. That's part of the problem here. They don't pace themselves the right way, and they just leave it out there for 5 innings. Now you get a quality start of 6 innings when quality starts used to be 7 and 8. With I hate to sound like an old fogey, but like Tom Seaver and the greats of the past, they knew how to pace themselves. They didn't come out chucking 100 miles an hour in the first inning. You don't need to do that. You got to pace yourself a little bit so you last a little longer. Now the trend is kind of going back to where the starters have to go a little deeper. I think you saw that from Mets manager Carlos Mendoza. He's pushed his starters a little more, and it's worked out that way because he hasn't had that great bullpen. Sometimes you got to do things to make up for your flaws, and part of that is if you don't have a great bullpen, you got to get a little more out of your starters. So I've always believed, you don't need to throw that hard in the first inning and just leave it all out there like that. And I think that's partly what's led to the injuries.
Agreed. Yeah, these guys are throwing a lot harder. That's why you're seeing some of these there's some players out there that have had, not just one Tommy John surgery. They've had 2 Tommy John surgeries, which is a little scary to think about. And you mentioned these guys throwing hard. Some of the former players that I've talked to, they're talking about now with young kids, like younger kids, high school kids. Coaches are making these young high school kids throw the ball super hard, and next thing you know, their elbow is messed up, and it's starting at a young age. So it's starting at a young age, and it's just they're already. I feel like their careers are already in a little bit of a danger, especially when they're trying to become baseball players, or at least Major League Baseball players. But it's a little scary to think about that this kind of thing is also happening at like a high school level, or even little kid levels too, like peewee levels. Just from talking with again with former players, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, part of that is mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the guys that come up. Spencer Strider on the Atlanta Braves.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying for a year he was going to get hurt. He doesn't use his lower body. He throws all upper body and arm. His arm juts out across his body. Yeah, he's throwing 100 miles an hour. I told people he was going to get hurt a year ago. I was surprised he lasted through the year. And look what happened now. Most of these guys are mechanically unsound because that's the way they're taught when they're younger. There's no focus on the lower body. That's where you get your strength as a pitcher. You push off the rubber with your lower body, and it gives you that velocity. Now they're trying to get the velocity just from the arm itself. I think that's another reason why the pitchers get hurt. Again, you refer to the guys that last, the guys that stay around, that don't get hurt a lot. Look at their mechanics. Their lower body is basically where they get their strength and where they get their drive. There's no leg drive on a lot of these guys. Paul Skeens is another guy, right now he's throwing real hard. He has a little more leg drive than like a Spencer Strider. Like when Steven Strasburg came up, I noticed he was mechanically unsound. He was an injury waiting to happen the way he threw the ball, but there's too much focus on the radar gun and things like that. So they get away from the mechanics of the actual pitching motion, which is very important, and not only for success, but staying on the mound and being healthy enough to last.
Yeah. No, you bring, again, excellent points. And this is, something that a lot of players, former players brought up, talking about the mechanics, how they utilize their body. And a lot of that comes into play. And like you said, these some of these guys, they don't need to be throwing 100 miles per hour in the first inning. That's not necessary. You do have to pace yourself in these games. But unfortunately, it's just the analytical people are saying, no, throw the ball hard.
Yeah, because they believe, the swing and miss stuff, But if you locate properly, you're going to get outs. You put a ball low in the zone, guys are not going to be able to lift that and hit it into the seats. They're probably going to hit it on the ground. Now they could find a hole between the infielders, sure. But if you're locating well, you're going to get your defense involved. Look at Greg Maddux, a Hall of Famer. He didn't throw that hard, Look at even Nestor Cortez when he's been successful. It's location. It's where you put the ball in the strike zone to where they can't lift the ball at the knees. It's very difficult. Some guys could do it maybe once in a while. But if you swing, that's also why they don't get a run in from third. With less than 2 out, you got to hit the ball in the air. And the way you hit the ball in the air is if it's up in the zone a little bit. That's when you're going to hit it in the air. If the ball's toward the ground or the lower part of your body, you're going to probably hit it into the ground. So they swing at pitches low instead of trying to, look for one that's up. It's funny. There's a guy named Roy White, a former Yankee, one of the most underrated Yankees in their history. He was such a smart ball player. One year he led the league in sacrifice flies, because he swung at the right pitches in those situations. Obviously, if you're down 2 strikes, you're in a hole. You can't afford to let a pitch go by. But when you're in command of that count, the first few pitches, or you get ahead, you don't need to swing at a ball below your knees or below the waist. You can take a pitch and make the pitcher bring it up to where you can hit that fly ball to get that run in. That run could be the difference in a win or a loss. There's so many little things that go into a game that decide whether you win or lose. Look at the Yankees in these playoffs, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about it. They left guys on base. They've had opportunities to put the Royals away, and they haven't done it. And that's been a characteristic of theirs over these past 10 years.
Yeah, let's talk about the Yankees in the playoffs right now. For this year's playoffs, so 2024. Game 1, game 2, obviously last night's game was pretty bad. The bats were absolutely cold. The problem with this team, it's not just in the playoffs, but it was also, during the regular season, especially with the bats. They have a problem with scoring, with runners in scoring position. The situational hitting has been pretty bad for this team. Even going into the postseason, I've had some people tell me that they're a little worried about the Yankees bullpen. They're worried about the Yankees pitching. Personally, I wasn't. I was more concerned about the bats. Now, game 1, it was a pretty messy game, but they still came away with a win. They came through when it mattered, in key moments. Game 2 last night. Granted, Rodon didn't exactly have a good outing. He started off hot, but then he just collapsed. And then the bats, they had opportunities to score. I know you were at that game. They had a lot of opportunities to score, make something happen, but they just were leaving guys stranded on the bases. I mean, that had to been that. For me, watching it on TV and watching this the whole entire season, watching it right now in the postseason, it's frustrating. And you can't afford to, make those types of mistakes or pass up on those types of opportunities. I wanted to get your thoughts on the season, the playoffs, and what you've seen so far.
All right, let's start with Rodon last night.
Sure.
Sometimes he tries to outthink himself, and he got away from what was working. He went to the secondary stuff a little too much in that 4th inning. He was leaving pitches up. And they weren't swinging hard at all. They were just looking to get base hits, and they got opportunities and took advantage of that. His fastball was live last night. He got away from that in the 4th inning, fell behind 2-0 on Perez. It was the first batter. He was 2-0 all night long. He hung a slider. Perez jumped all over it, was able to poke it into the left field seats. And then he got away from the fastball again. He tends to overthink things sometimes, which is what I thought happened in the 4th inning. And here's another thing I just want to touch on, which I found very, very distressing. I read it, and I didn't even realize it last night because I was in the locker room. Apparently, Rodon got some nasty messages on social media about his family. I mean, do people really have to go there? Is your life depending on a Yankees winning a game or not? I mean, it's disgusting what goes on. Those are gutless cowards that post that vile stuff on social media and bring the player's family into it. I have a feeling those were bettors that lost the game because he didn't pitch well. It's disgusting. Let me tell you that right now. And it's uncalled for. That garbage from the cowardly guys that don't show their face and wouldn't say it to a guy's face. You put something on social media that you wouldn't say to a guy's face, you're a gutless coward. And it's really distressing to hear that kind of stuff because the man is a good man. He didn't pitch well. It's not life or death. He's a good guy. He's a stand-up guy. He meets the media. He admitted he made mistakes. I mean, that really turned me off, for one thing. Now, as far as the offense goes, I think a big problem with their offense is Giancarlo Stanton. He is so immobile. The fielders can afford to play deeper on him, especially with a man on base. He's almost, he hits the ball hard, but he's almost like a double play waiting to happen, because one, they don't have a guy in front of him who can run to negate the chance for a double play. So, look, if Austin Wells is on first, he's not going to try to steal to stay out of a double play. So yesterday he hits the ball hard that Witt made a diving stop on, that if Witt's in a little bit, that would have been a base hit. But it turned into a 6-4-3 that killed a potential inning. Another guy who's a stand-up guy, and I respect him, but his lack of mobility is really hurting this lineup, and their lack of athleticism within the lineup. Even their batting order, to me, is out of whack. I know Gleyber Torres has done well at the leadoff, but they don't scare the opposing pitcher. As I mentioned before, some teams are not taking advantage of the stolen base rules. The Yankees are a prime example about that. They finally stole a base last night. Volpe, I don't know what he's doing. He waits till it's 2 out before he even attempts to steal a base. He dances off the base trying to, get the pitcher to be distracted. And sometimes he seems to be off balance, and I'm surprised no one's tried to pick him off. And that's another thing. You ever see the opposing pitchers throw over a lot on the Yankees? I know you can only do it twice without, a penalty on the third time, but they rarely throw over. There's no threats. They don't put pressure on the opposing defense. So they end up trying to wait things out and go station to station on the bases when they do get things going. I think it's part of the reason that they fail to score on these opportunities. Sometimes you got to tip your cap to the pitcher where they just beat you. I mean, that happens. But the fact that they've been getting chances and not cashing in, that's an alarming trend here. And I know a lot of it, is focused is on Aaron Judge. I know a lot of people, a lot of their lineup depends on him producing, and he's not had a real good success in the postseason, especially like in 2022 and these first 2 games. To me, he looks like he's pressing a little bit at the plate. His shoulders flying open, his head turns. You got to hope that he wakes up, because their guy Bobby Witt is 0 for 10, and they got a split in these 2 games with him being 0 for 10. He's capable of going off and wrecking the game. So it almost comes down to who's going to wake up first, Aaron Judge or Bobby Witt. That's going to decide this series. And certainly if the Yankees continue to play offensively as they have been in these first 2 in these recent postseasons, it's going to be sayonara and see you real quick, and they won't even see the ALCS. Now, one thing they have going for them from the regular season, they weren't a very good home team this year. I think sometimes they try to play to the fans instead of playing their game and letting the fans react to the game. So they've been a better road team. I think they won 50 games on the road this year. Yeah, they won 50. They were 50-31 because they were 44-37 at home. They won 94 games. 44-37 is not a great home record for a team that expects to go deep and has a home field advantage in the playoffs.
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to touch up on because you brought it up, and I'm happy you did, about the whole Carlos Rodon situation and folks, those so-called fans messaging his wife on social media and making death threats and whatnot. Like you said, those types of fans are cowards. There's no need for that. Yeah, you might be upset, you might be mad that the Yankees lost, but to go to that level is never okay. And I've seen that, and I've seen those types of things happen to other players, whether it's baseball, basketball, football. I've seen players get death threats or receive death threats. Yeah, it is cowardly. It's pathetic. It's very low. And like you said, you wouldn't say that to their face. Show your face, and then let's see what you're made of. But to do it, nowadays, when you got a computer and a keyboard, all of a sudden you're brave. But it's a pathetic behavior. I never understood it. But these guys are still human at the end of the day. Whether or not they make, they make their millions of dollars, but they're still human beings. They're going to make mistakes. They're not perfect either. Was it a bad outing for Rodon? Sure. It wasn't great. But to go to that type of level it's not necessary. The other thing you brought up was, this season, the Yankees and playing at home. Yeah, they're playing at home. They haven't had a good home record. Their home record has been bad. They're away from the stadium. They've just been excellent. 44-37 at home, 50-31 away from the stadium. Usually you would think the Yankees, usually the Yankees that we know, they play much better at home than they do away. This year, it's a different story. And the other thing too is that they have performed well against teams that are 500 or better. That was another thing that I know we all saw this season. What is it about this season? Is it something specific about this season that, if playing well away from the stadium as opposed to not playing as well at home, or what do you think that is? Is it just, you said playing to the fans? I do get that, but do you think they're trying too hard at home in front of their fans?
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
I think they're more relaxed on the road. It's the only thing you can really pin down. It's hard to explain. When you're a good team, championship team, you're going to be over 5. The old theory is to win most of your games at home, like win 50-55 if you can, and then be 500 on the road. 41-40 or around that area. So it's kind of like flipped a little bit. I think they get hurt. Their pitchers get hurt by the short dimensions as much as they benefit from it. And you look at the teams that they lost to at home. They got swept by the Reds at home. They had trouble with the interleague games at home. They lose a series to the Cardinals. The Mets took 2 from them at home. The Reds swept them. It was a weird phenomenon. Hard to explain why they had trouble with the National League teams more so than the American League teams. Now, before they took 3 out of 4 from the Red Sox at home in September, they had 3 or 4 other 4-game series, and they split every one of them. There was one against Seattle. I forgot, there was a couple of others. They split those. Instead of winning those series, they split. You got to win 3 out of 4 at home sometimes and win those series. And they weren't doing it, especially in the midsummer when they had their struggles, when they weren't winning any series, even on the road. So I don't know. It's hard to pin down. I think maybe they try too hard at home. Everyone says, the fans are great. The fans have been, noisy and supportive. And, thankfully they're not booing Judge, like they did early in the year when he was really struggling. So, yeah, maybe they try too hard at home. They're more relaxed on the road. But again, also their dimensions, I think, hurt, that teams have been able to take advantage of it more so than they do. Everyone complains, the people who are not, the road teams, like to complain, there's such short dimensions in right field. Well, that's your ballpark. You have the same at-bats in that stadium that the Yankees do. And I think this year the road teams took a little more advantage of it than the Yankees did.
Yeah, they certainly did. They certainly did. So, I know we have game 3 coming up tomorrow. I know it's going to be. They announced Clark Schmidt's going to be the starter. He'll be pitching against Seth Lugo. So, game 3, it's going to be in Kansas City. If you had to have an early prediction, I mean, we talked about how the Yankees play so well when they're away. Can you see the Yankees coming away with a win tomorrow? Is that can you see that happening as long as the offense comes through?
It's not out of the question. You just got to stay close with these guys. Their bullpen isn't that great. I mean, it pitched well last. You want to say it pitched well? They got out of a lot of jams.
Mm-hmm.
The Yankees did have traffic, and then they won game 1 off their bullpen. I was encouraged when they got Reagans out of the game last night and started bringing in those relievers. But, they got, to their credit, they got the job done. Now, Lugo dominated them in Yankee Stadium. I was at that game. The Yankees did nothing to really upset his rhythm. There's a guy who benefits from the pitch clock because he has to get into a rhythm. And when he gets in rhythm, he's tough to hit. Even Anthony Volpe doesn't try to bunt his way on. When the guy's going good, you got to try something else. That, instead of swinging from your heels, try and bunt your way on. Make the defense, work a little bit. He hardly pitched out of the stretch in that game. He was that dominant that night for 7 innings. I think they maybe had 2 runners on him the whole game. So he hardly pitched out of the stretch. He's a guy you got to make him work out of the stretch. He's a different pitcher when he's not able to go into the windup. So the key is going to be getting guys on against him and also try to take advantage. Run if you can. I mean, he doesn't hold guys on that well, Lugo. Not like they're lefties, like Reagans did last night. So the key is, obviously, to get ahead of them also, make them play uphill. But it's not out of the question they can win the game tomorrow. Another stupid stuff I'm reading on social media. Oh, this series is over. You don't know that. Yeah, it feels down after you lost yesterday. It doesn't feel great. And Lugo, dominated them. But don't forget they hit Lugo in Kansas City, when they took 3 out of 4 there in that series. And they should have swept that series if Holmes, could have closed the deal. Rizzo didn't mess up that play at first base on that little dribbler. That's how they beat you, Kansas City. They nitpick you to death. They don't really hit a lot of homers. Now, if they're hitting home runs, then you're in trouble. But, look, they can get to Lugo early. They're going to not have to – they can't let him get in a rhythm. That's going to be the key. I like Schmidt. I think I like his arm. He's got to get through the early innings. He's going to be nervous. His first playoff start. Hopefully he can give them some length. And then they get into the bullpen, which has been pretty good since they moved Holmes out of the closer role. So I think the key is getting on top in the game. That's why you want to get on the first inning is so important in a playoff game. Look at the last 2 games with the Yankees. They didn't score twice and they had opportunities. You want to get on the board in the first inning. That's why, I believe the batting order is key in the first inning because that's the only inning a manager can control. He dictates who comes up in the first inning, those first 3. You can't – the rest of it is chance by how the game occurs. So the first inning is a key in many playoff games. You want to get on the board. You want to make the other team think, oh, we got to come back. And so I think that those first early innings are going to be key tomorrow night.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like, especially in the first inning, like you said, you have to – if you have an opportunity where you have a couple of guys on or the bases are loaded, you got to score. You have to score. There's really no excuses, especially if it's no outs or 1 out. There's your opportunity.
Right.
You got to execute on that game plan. Many times we have seen that the Yankees just don't do that. I mean, when they don't do that, okay, I'll be honest, I don't get into a panic mode, but I'm like, okay, this isn't good. You have to execute on those opportunities because as many chances as the Yankees get, which is many, they don't seem to execute on that, which is frustrating.
See, now, that was a characteristic of the team that won the 4 out of 5. Mm-hmm. Like they rarely failed to get the guy in from third with less than 2 out. It was almost automatic for that team. And that's what that puts pressure on the defense when they know there's a guy on third and they're getting them in. With this team, they know they've had struggles, so it gives the opposition a feeling of, oh, we can get out of it because we know they've struggled. Again, they don't put enough pressure on the defense with what they do offensively. And I think that's part of the problem that's been hampering them in these recent postseasons since 2017, certainly in this Aaron Judge era that started in 2017 against the Astros. Part of the problem against the Astros were they were imbalanced. They were too right-handed, and they had trouble getting runners in from third and things like that. So it was a combination. At least here with Soto, he gives them a little more of a left-handed presence, but they still have, a bad habit of not being able to cash in on opportunities. And I think that feeds into the opposition's feelings when they're in that situation that they have a chance to get out of it. If you notice, when teams get bases loaded and no out, and then the defense gets the first out, that defense feels, oh, we got a shot to get out of this with maybe one run and maybe none, because that first batter, bases loaded, no out, could be the key to the whole inning. So the Yankees, who have trouble getting, that guy in from third with less than two out, or cashing in when they have runners in scoring position, they almost feed the opposition's positivity that they have a chance to get out of it. And I think that's been snowballing on them, especially in postseason games.
Yeah, it's been a theme. It's been a common theme with the Yankees, unfortunately, and they need to break that habit. I don't know how or when, but it needs to happen sooner rather than later. Now, with this lineup, assuming we know what the lineup is going to be, you know who the usual suspects are going to be in the lineup for tomorrow's game. Would you make any substitutions? Would you, there's been some rumblings from fans, because fans like to cause some rumbles, saying that they should bench Giancarlo Stanton and instead have Jason Dominguez DH. Would you do something like that, or would you change the order of the lineup at all to try and improve the at bats?
I thought about that too, benching Stanton, because of his lack of mobility. I mean, he puts a cramp in the lineup, a real handicap. They're not going to do it, because they think he can wreck the game still. But if Dominguez was at least showing that he was hitting down the stretch, I think it may be more of a consideration. Now, if they made that change, it would have to be. I think you would have to put Judge at DH and put Dominguez in center, as a fielder. He's had trouble in left field because he hasn't played a lot of left field. The corner outfield spots are different than center field. You get a different read on a ball, especially like if in left field, if a lefty hits it to left field, it's always moving away from you. In right field, if a righty hits it to right field, the ball's kind of moving away from you. In center, you get more of a direct read. Their batting order drives me crazy too. I know they got Torres at leadoff. To me, Chaz Chisholm should lead off. He puts a little more pressure on the opposing pitcher when he gets on base, and they got him in like an RBI slot at 5 or 6. I mean, to me, that doesn't make any sense. If they had Stanton in the lineup, if they had Chisholm on the top, you could actually bat Stanton second. And again, what we were talking about earlier, staying out of the double play, at least this guy could run. So if Stanton hits a ground ball, it's not an automatic double play. Then you maybe move Soto to 3 and Judge to 4, which may be better off. It's just a suggestion. It's never going to happen. They're never going to make that kind of drastic change at this point in the season. But to me, their batting order has always been out of whack. Especially the first inning, you control who comes up. Now, Soto's been good in the 2 spot, and Judge in the regular season been very good in the 3. So they're not going to change right now. But I think part of the reason that, again, they struggle is the way their batting order is constructed. So, I don't know what kind of change they're going to make. I think you're going to see the same lineup you've been seeing. And you just got to hope that they click at some point, that their big bats, can wreck the game like Soto and Judge have been doing during the regular season.
Yeah, Judge needs to come up big. He needs to come up big in the postseason. His postseason hasn't been the greatest. Giancarlo Stanton, interestingly enough, I mean, his postseason numbers, he's actually been better, although he hasn't been good so far in this series. I'm hoping he has a breakout, because like you said, they're probably not going to take him out of the lineup, but I'm hoping he does break out and has a big game tomorrow along with Aaron Judge, because those guys absolutely need to step up. But there's other names that are stepping up, that have been stepping up. I mean, Alex Verdugo, actually, he's been stepping up. He's been playing well in my eyes. Volpe, he's trying, but I don't know what's going on with him, with Anthony Volpe. Wells was fine in game 1. Game 2, he was.
Well, he got a hit last night.
Yeah,
not many Yankees did.
Yeah, that's true. He did get a hit last night.
He's a rookie. You got to give him a pass. He's trying his best, but he's a rook. So it's his first time around. Mm-hmm. He's not really a legitimate 4 when you look at it. But like tomorrow against Lugo, he's got a bad force. I worry about Stanton against Lugo. Lugo just dominating with breaking stuff. You said Stanton. Yeah, he's had nice postseason numbers, but they're not winning with those postseason numbers. No. So you gotta say to yourself, why is that? Where is he producing? And again, the other side of Stanton is he hits the ball hard, but he hits it right at guys, and with guys on base, it's demoralizing when you hit into a double play. You feel almost down when the team you're rooting for that hits into that DP, especially with bases loaded. They hit into a lot of double plays with bases loaded, so they kill a lot of innings with the way they're structured. And I think that this all goes into their offensive struggles. It all adds into it. Is that trend going to change? For their sake, I hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, and the Yankees have hit into a lot of double plays in the regular season.
I think they led the league.
They led the league. Yeah, they did lead the league. And it's funny. I do a lot of pregame shows in the regular season. If obviously during the postseason, as long as the Yankees are in it, I do a lot of pregame shows. So there's always a list of questions or predictions that I ask people to give their predictions on. And one of them is, and it's just for fun, and it's just funny because we know the Yankees hit into a lot of double plays. One of the questions I ask is, okay, how many double plays are the Yankees going to hit into today? So we have, just to add a little humor to it, because some people are saying 2, 3, 4, 4. I think some folks are joking about that. But the point is, we just know that they're going to at least hit into 1. There's been games where they've hit into 1, 2, 3. And it was just like, how is this? This is crazy. They hit into so many double plays. And it's a rally killer. And when Giancarlo hit into that double play yesterday, I'm like, if that was anybody else running, I hate to say, but they would.
He beats it. At least he keeps the inning alive by reaching first base. Now, Judge hits a lot of balls hard too, but at least he can run down the line and have a chance to beat out the relay throw. He hits into a lot of double plays because he hits balls hard right at guys like Stanton, but Stanton can't run down the line to at least keep the inning going. That's a huge liability. I mean, again, and they don't take advantage of the running game like they should with these new rules. So they're basically station to station in a lot of ways, and their offense is kind of dull. That's the best way to put it. Yeah, it's nice when they hit the long ball. Are they still too reliant on the home run? That may be the case. That's why they struggle to score, especially if it's not the great pitchers are going to keep you down. I mean, that's why they're great. But the mediocre pitchers that they don't score off, that's where you really scratch your head. To me, I have a theory that the great pitchers get you out. The average pitchers get you out sometimes, but you get yourself out. Now, the mediocre pitchers, you get yourself out more times than they get you out, because you can get yourself out by swinging at bad pitches, in certain situations, like if you're 2-0 and you swing a pitch out of the zone and you pop up, that's how you get yourself out. And I think a lot of times they get themselves out against mediocre arms and make them look better than they are.
And that's been another thing this season. So you think with that being said, against these mediocre arms, you think the Yankees against these mediocre arms, they go into the game with overly confident? Then would you say that we don't need, like, they don't go in with a sense of urgency that they think it's just going to be a cakewalk?
I don't know if it's overly confident, but that sense of urgency doesn't seem to exist sometimes. Sure, you know, I think they think it's going to happen, but you're not pushing it along to help make it happen. If you can decipher what that means,
Right.
I mean, these are, you can point to certain things. Baseball's a funny game. Average players can come up big. Look at it, the Giants when they won their 3 championships in the 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
They had a guy named Cody Ross who had a big, postseason. You haven't heard from him since, but he was great during those games and he helped carry them. Sometimes you get lightning in a bottle with certain players that they come out of nowhere, even though they're not that great. They have their moments. I don't think the Yankees have guys that have had their moments so much. And again, it comes down to fundamentals too, swinging at the right pitches. Aaron Boone likes to say after a lot of games, "Oh, we had good at bats," and then I'm watching the game, and I'm saying to myself, "Really? I mean, look at Volpe mechanically. His head flies open. He swings from his heels. Never tries to lay a bunt down to get on base to use his speed. I like to, you don't have to play small ball. I know they're not built to play small ball, but sometimes you got to use, those kind of tactics to attack a certain pitcher when he's in a rhythm. I'd like to see Volpe lay a bunt down tomorrow against Lugo if he's dominating you. Lugo's not the greatest fielder. Make Miguel Garcia make a play on you at third. They don't even fear the bunt, some of these defenses. They're not even playing in on certain guys that have speed. Jazz Chisholm, tried to fake the bunt last night at some point. He's another guy who should try and lay a bunt down, but maybe gets carried away with the short porch at Yankee Stadium and swings for that instead of making the play of getting on base and using his speed to steal a run. That's how they won the game the other night. They got a break on that review. Who knows if he was out or they had a different angle where it looked like he was safe, because they showed you one angle where it did look like he was safe. So that's what they were seeing in the umpire's review room. So probably they deemed it inconclusive, so they went with the call on the field. Jazz stole second, and then Verdugo got a big hit to bring him in. Without that stolen base, that's just a single. He maybe goes to second. So that they need to utilize the things that are there for them, that are available to them, that they simply ignore. It's strange in a lot of ways.
It is bizarre because they have the capabilities. They have the guys to do it. They can take advantage of a lot of opportunities, but it's just there's been a lot of games where they just don't do what they should or what they're supposed to. And it is pretty alarming. I don't know if that's the players. I don't know if that's on Aaron Boone and the coaching staff. I don't, who do you point the finger at? I don't know.
I think part of it is a philosophy, the way they approach the game.
Mm-hmm.
They make a lot of mistakes on the field. They don't play the game smart. Baseball smarts, baseball IQ. A lot of them, they just don't do the right things. Like even now, Chisholm's an inexperienced third baseman, so he failed to cut off that throw where Hampson went to second and ended up scoring the 4th run. Mm-hmm. Ian Hamilton came in. If he's on first, maybe he goes to second or third, but it's still 2 out, and you got a chance to get out of the inning. And Hamilton threw well. I mean, he struck out the side the next inning. So maybe it's 3-1 instead of 4-1, which is a big difference, 2 and 3 runs going into the last inning. We only need 1 guy on base instead of 2 to bring the tying run to the plate. So these are the little things they don't do well, right, that wins games, and it's kind of costing them games.
Right, absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head there, Howie. We do have a few more minutes, but I wanted to ask you, with Aaron, with the Yankees, do you like their chances going to the World Series this season this year compared to 2022? Do you think they have a better shot compared to 2022?
Well, It's tough to say. I mean, I'd like to say yes, and then and sometimes I have to feel no, because some nights I watch them, they look like a World Series team, and then other nights you watch them and they look like they have no business being in the World Series. Who knows if they're going to get past this Royals team? If they don't win this division series, you're going to see some changes, made. I don't know what kind of changes, but there's going to have to be changes made here. I don't know if they want to bring back Gleyber Torres. Just looking ahead, let's just say they lose to the Royals, okay?
Yeah.
So you still need a third baseman. You're still weak at first. I like Rizzo, but he's an older player. You're going to pick up that option next year for Rizzo, even if he wants to play next year. I think he would. I don't think he wants it to end like this. But, can you rely on him? I like him there. He's lost some range at first, but he's still like a spiritual leader. Do you want to bring Torres back at second or move Jazz Chisholm to second, which is his natural spot? You're still going to need a third baseman. Is Volpe a shortstop of the future? He didn't progress this year. He took a step back. He makes some nice plays, but he also blows some routine plays at short. And if he's not hitting like he's hitting now, how useful is he? Verdugo's a free agent. You want to bring him back? I don't think so. I think their plan is for Dominguez to be in center, and then of course there's the Juan Soto question. I think you have to bring him back at some point. I think you have to do what it takes to get him back, especially at his age. And luckily Austin Wells looks like a nice piece in the future. They need a legitimate closer. Is Luke Weaver for real, or is this a one season type thing where he can be your closer? They certainly got a lot out of him. Other teams couldn't, to their credit, But some of the guys they've had that come through here, look at Luis Severino, what he's doing with the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
He was healthy with the Yankees last year, and he was getting hammered. Why did that happen with the Yankees when the Mets are getting this out of him? That's kind of an indictment on the Yankees and the way they do things. They've got some nice arms in the minors, from what I understand. I don't follow the minors as closely. I follow it, but I don't follow it as closely as I do the major league team. Are they going to do they have chips to even trade, to make moves? Who do they really have to trade to make a move that they need? They don't really have chips. I like to see them use Oswaldo Cabrera a little more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's had trouble hitting right-handed, so maybe he should abandon right-hand hitting and just be a left-hand hitter. He's tried that a couple of times against lefties late in the season. I like him. I mean, he's a nice young player. He gives them a little more athleticism out there. I was surprised they weren't playing him at third before Chisholm came over. For some reason, they don't think he can be a guy who'll be in the lineup every day. But it seems like when you put him in, he does things. And he did a nice job at first base the other night when he hasn't really been that experienced over there. So they're at a crossroads here. I mean, even if they somehow get to the World Series, they've got a lot of decisions to make for their future. So, I mean, which way are they going to go? I knew they weren't a lock against the Royals. Everyone said, "Oh, it's all set up for them." Baloney. That's a dangerous position to be in, to overlook an opponent, which they're not doing. But, I knew they wouldn't sweep the Royals. I know this Royals team is going to give them a problem because of how they play the game. And that's a bad matchup for the Yankees. Same thing if the Tigers got in. The Tigers don't score a lot, but they have the pitching. You saw what they did in that road series with them in Detroit, and then that Little League, classic game that night. You saw what happened. Their flaws tend to show up too much, and I'm a little worried that they're going to start showing up again, and that could, cut short their run to the World Series.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks with the Yankees, that's for sure. And honestly, I don't know that Verdugo is going to be brought back. I don't think they're going to sign him back. Clay Holmes is another question mark. I don't know that the Yankees bring him back. Gleyber Torres, I've been saying that they probably won't bring him back, but if they were to, maybe on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, it'll be a short deal.
It'll be a short deal. Yeah, there's no way that the Yankees are going to give him a long-term deal. And I know he's going to probably try and seek that, and some team might offer it to him. As far as, depending on how the rest of the postseason plays out for the Yankees, I mean, Aaron Boone, what happens with him, because he does have an option for 2025. But do the Yankees actually exercise that option? I don't know. To me, that's a big question mark. Rizzo, I don't see him being brought back. I like Anthony Rizzo, but they need to, I think, figure out something else for first base. What that option is, I don't know, because first base is a little bit of a weak position right now, even though.
And here's another thing that we didn't even bring up. And
yeah,
I just remembered it myself.
Sure.
The fact that they passed on Bryce Harper, what was it, 7 years ago now, 2018? I think he was the free agent.
Mm-hmm.
I said it at the time. I said they're going to regret that. And they went for Stanton. They got cute. They thought they had a great deal for Stanton. They were setting it up after 2016 when they didn't make the playoffs. They didn't make it that year. They brought up Sanchez. They brought up Judge. They brought up Tyler Austin. Remember, they made A-Rod retired in August. Mm-hmm. Sanchez got off to this great start. He didn't pan out. Now he's a part-time player with the Brewers. He was an awful defensive catcher. They never wanted to try him even at first base or another position. Another dumb move that they made. But Bryce Harper fit them like a glove. And they said that he would never transition to first base. Well, look what he's doing now, And I think they've come to regret that move ever since they passed on him. He wanted to come here. He wanted to be a Yankee. He's a Spitfire type of guy, spark plug. I think he would have fit this Yankee team beautifully with Judge. Then they wouldn't have even had to go out and get Soto, at this point. So, it's revisionist history, but I said it at the time. I said they're going to regret. And then they made a mistake not signing Bryce Harper because everyone said, "Oh, Mike Trout was better than Harper." Look what's happened now. Trout's not even on the field. Yeah. Harper's won 2 MVPs. He's been in a World Series. So again, this is a mistake that's haunted them for a number of years. It made them scramble to get left-hand hitting. They always claimed, "Oh, we have Stanton and Judge. They can reach the right field seats." Yeah, maybe at Yankee Stadium, but not on the road when you go to those other places where there's not the short right field porch. And it created a lack of balance over the years where they finally realized we need left-hand bats, to counter the right-handed pitching that they're facing. So it was like a domino effect of them passing on him that's led to all this, even this non-success in the postseason. You think if they had Harper in these past postseasons, they wouldn't have lost all these games to the Astros? I don't think so. I think it would have been an X factor in those games, and they probably would have won maybe 1 or 2. That series where they went to 6. They lost in 2019. Now in 2022, they just were not in it. They got swept. But I think if they had Harper today, I think they'd be in a much better position than they are right now, as they seem to be scrambling a little bit and a little bit of in flux, as to not know which direction they're headed.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens in the offseason. I know right now, focus on the postseason. Let's see what the Yankees can do right now. But I'm interested to see what happens in the offseason. I really am, because there's a lot of decisions they're going to have to be made. I know Juan Soto is going to be their number one priority. They got to do everything to sign him back. They can't let that guy go. You don't just trade for the guy for just, we know he was going to be a 1-year rental. We knew he was going to test free agency. That was inevitable. But, you don't trade a package like that and for a guy like Soto and then just let him walk or leave for another team. That can't happen. Then that trade was just a waste all around. So
yeah, the only guy they really lost in that deal is Michael King. So
100%.
far, he's been good. They're not that stupid. I'm making them sound like they're the dumbest team on the earth. They're not. No. They knew when they got Soto that he could have a big season and they were going to have to ante up. I think they're prepared for that. I think, I would be surprised if they let somebody outbid them for Soto, unless, it's just an outrageous number that is really ridiculous. But otherwise, I think they're going to bring him back. The good thing is he likes playing with Judge. He
Mm-hmm.
likes playing here. He loves the fans. The fans have, embraced him dearly. That thankfully he's had a good season, that they've had nothing to be down about him, So I think he's enjoying himself here, and I think he's smart. He's a smart kid. He's young, but he's smart, and he
Right.
realizes what the Yankee legacy could be. If he did play his career here and get to win 1 or 2 World Series with them, he would go down as a legacy player. He's got that chance. Plus, he's got the short right field porch. Even though he doesn't need it, he hits to the gaps, and he can reach the left field seats as a left-hand hitter. So, I think they got that in their corner. I don't think they let him walk without a fight, so to speak. So when they got him, they realized they're going to have to ante up. But they have other problems too to address, as you were mentioning.
Yeah.
So we're going to see where they end up. First of all, the season's not over yet, thankfully.
Nope.
Royals still have to win 2 more. The Yankees at least want to get a split here and get back to Yankee Stadium for Game 5 Saturday night, and then hopefully advance into the ALCS, where they would have the home advantage. So let's see where the chips fall, and keep your fingers crossed that they can get things done in Kansas City.
Absolutely, Howie. Absolutely. And there's still work that needs to be done right now. The Yankees need to focus on Game 3 tomorrow. So let's see what they do against Seth Lugo, because that's going to be another tough pitching matchup right there with Lugo and Schmidt. It's going to be I feel like it'll be a pitcher's duel. Let's see how the bats perform for the Yankees tomorrow night. It's going to be really interesting to see. And just one last question, and this is from one of the folks in the chat. This is from Ken. I don't know if you see it on the screen there, but he says,
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Karpin. What inspired you to write so you think you're a New York Yankee fan?
That was a fun read. It wasn't really any inspiration. It was more like a publisher came to me with the idea. I did put a lot into it. There was I think 100 questions in that book, and that that was a quiz book that turned into one of the better books that more successful books that I've written, because I checked the reviews on Amazon one time, and I think that got 190 reviews, which
Nice.
I was stunned, and it's still getting reviews. That was a fun book to work on. I put a lot of effort into that book, but it wasn't really an inspiration that inspired me to write it. I've written 14 books, a lot of baseball, a couple of hockey, a couple other books, but that was a fun one. I mean, it was fun looking up the old, as you introduced me, I'm an historian, so I love looking up old things. And plus I grew up in the 60s. In fact, I had fun looking up the old Mayor's Trophy games between the Yankees and the Mets, those exhibition games they used to play, things like that. So yeah, that was a fun thing to work on, and I was proud of that. I didn't think it would be as successful as not a bestseller or anything like that, not a Pulitzer Prize winner for sure, but that was a fun book to work on, and that was one of the more fun things that I did, because I wrote another quiz book called New York Yankees Firsts, but so you think you're a New York Yankees fan. That was a fun one. I really enjoyed working on that one, and I hope people enjoyed it when they picked it up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you got 190 reviews and that means people are buying it, people are enjoying it. So that's a good sign. As far as I wanted to ask you this real quick, tonight's games, real quick, like quick prediction. How do you see it playing out for Mets, Phillies, Dodgers, Padres?
I think the Mets at least get one of these two. I don't know if it's tonight or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling they send it back to Philly for 5.
Okay.
Dodgers have to be concerned. I mean, the Padres seem to have their number.
Mm-hmm.
So, they won 8 of 13 during the regular season. That was a big win for them.
Oh, Howie did freeze up. We all good? A little bit of technical difficulties. I think we might have lost Howie. I know he froze on the screen there. Here, let me remove him and see if I can bring him back. We might have, yeah, I think we lost Howie. I think there might have been a little bit of a internet connection, but we'll wait for him to, let me see if he's able to come back. But yeah, he did. I think there was a little bit of technical difficulties, but um, while we wait, let me see if he gets back. I can resend him the link if I need to. But I hope you guys were enjoying the conversation, though. I hope you guys were able to get something out of it, and at least he gives his take on the Yankees and the postseason. I mean, he's been involved with the game for 45 years, right? So hopefully y'all were able to again get something out of it. I'm just texting him real quick. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, he just texted me saying that he had an internet connection. He lost his internet connection, which I kind of figured, but it's all good. It's all good. Sometimes these things do happen. Um, and I do see D-Rod in the building. I saw a bunch of you in the building. I appreciate all of you tuning in. Again, I hope you all are enjoying the conversation. I know there's a few of you in Florida right now dealing with some of the hurricane stuff. Is everybody okay? Let me know. Let me know if y'all are doing okay down there in Florida. I know Florida is getting hit or about to get hit pretty far or pretty bad, and they got hit pretty bad recently. So I hope you all are okay and being safe out there. You guys, I'm thinking of you guys, so my thoughts are with you. Hopefully y'all are okay. Not going to be fun. People from Oh, is that right, D-Rod? Well, be safe, man. All right, be safe. I don't want anybody getting hurt. D-Rod, John the Beagle Dad, I know you're there. I hope you're all okay. So, yeah, Real Bill, you're in Virginia. Yeah, sorry, man. Sorry. Yeah, again, my thoughts are with you, with all of you. My thoughts are with all of you. I'm thinking of you guys. So, um, so sorry that y'all are dealing with what you're dealing with. So, but while we're waiting, how's everybody's day going? Talk to me. How did you all feel about last night's game? I know last night's game was a frustrating game to watch. Unfortunately, Rodon, um, you know, started the game off hot, but then he cooled off. He collapsed there in the fourth inning. The Yankees bats uh, had opportunity, but they just were not able to capitalize. But this is something that that we were kind of used to seeing by now, right? From the Yankees. I mean, unfortunately, their bats don't come through when they should, and it's unfortunate. The bats were cold last night, and the bats had ample opportunity, but have done pretty piss poor so far in the last two games. Also, I wanted to send a special shout out to Joe Mangoa for setting me up with Howie Karpin. He set me up with Howie Karpin. Joe knows, Joe used to do radio. He knows quite a few people, so he knows Howie. So it's cool to get Howie on the show um, and talk about baseball, talk about the Yankees. So shout out to Joe for setting this up. But yeah, last night's game again was pretty piss poor. Looking at last night's game, I'm trying to pull up the box score here. So let's see what we got. The Yankees left 8 runners on base. They were 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position yesterday, which is, unacceptable, right? I mean, game 1, just to pull that up. Oh, hold that note. Look, I got Howie waiting backstage. Just give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're good to go. Perfect.
Yeah, something happened with the internet.
It's all right. Sometimes technology doesn't like to cooperate. I've experienced my fair share. So,
So you want to close it out,
Yeah, so I wanted to, just was trying to get your predictions on tonight's NLDS games. I know you said the Mets that the series is probably going to go back to Philly, and then you said that San Diego is going to win. That they're going to give the Dodgers a hard time, and I do agree with you. I see, San Diego is my pick to go to the World Series on the NL side, because even without Musgrove, because they lost him to TJS, I feel like even without him, they can still make things happen. They have the pitching. They got the bats. I feel like this is the team that's going to go to the World Series on the NL side.
Yeah, I'm not in the prediction business.
Sure. I like to do my
your pick is valid. They got a good team.
Mm-hmm.
They're well balanced. They have a good bullpen. The Musgrove loss is big. It would be bigger if they play the Mets because Musgrove owned the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
Mets will be a tough out, even if they get past Philly, especially.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be a very difficult out, and they could end up in the World Series. Not out of the question, But
definitely.
You get, the Phillies are a really good team right now. That was a big win for them the other day. Like I said, I think that'll go 5. It's very competitive and very wide open this year, which makes for exciting games. And they certainly can't complain about the excitement that they've had. First time in a long time, these series are all knotted up after 2 games.
Yeah, I think whoever wins. So I do feel like with some of these series, whoever wins Game 3, I feel like have a better chance of advancing. But it's baseball; you never know what's going to happen. But I have my own set of predictions, but I've also seen predictions backfire on me too. But I just do this all in fun. But Howie, anything else you want to say to the chat? Any last words before we close it out?
No, this has been fun. I mean, you want to have me back on at some point during the off season, we can do that too.
Absolutely. I would love to get you back on in the off season and maybe during the winter meetings or free agency period. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that and seeing what we think the Yankees are going to do. But yeah, we'd love to get you back on the show again, Howie. But I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to jump on with me and talk to the rest of the chat about baseball, about the Yankees, and about a little bit about you and your life and how you got involved in the sport of baseball.
Yeah, my pleasure. And like I said, anytime, just let me know.
Will do, Howie. Will do.
Keep up the good work with the show.
Thank you so much, Howie. Thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome. Take care.
Take care. Have a nice day. All right. Well, we did get Howie back on for a few more minutes, so nice for him to come back on. He had his internet had some problems, but that's all right. It does happen. So Andrew, I see your question here. So what do we got? He's saying for Wednesday, I think we should switch Wells to second spot, Soto to bat third, Judge to bat fourth, so that Soto can be the unsung hero to win us clutch games. I mean, we were just talking about the lineup there with Howie, and he made a mention of having Jazz Chisholm at the leadoff spot. And I forgot who he said. I think he said Giancarlo batting second, Soto batting third, Judge batting fourth, which, you know, would be nice. I mean, I could that would be a different lineup, but the Yankees are not going to do it. You know, that's the thing. The Yankees are not going to do that. They're not going to make that happen. But, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but they're not going to do it. You know, they're simply simple as that. I don't know that they're going to do it. I like the idea. I do like the idea. But they're not going to change the lineup. So that I don't see happening. So Howie Karpin, you probably missed that at the beginning of the show, but he is an official scorer for Major League Baseball. You know, he's written books. He's an anchor. He's a anchor on Sirius XM. You know, baseball. He's a baseball guru. You know, he's been involved in the sport for a very long time. So that's Howie Karpin. Nah, Ali, I understand if you feel like that the Yankees aren't going to make it. I get it, man. I do get it. I mean, but the series right now is tied 1-1. You know, it's not like they're down 2-0. You know, if they were down 2-0, then yeah, I would you would have every reason to be concerned about this team. But they're down one. They're tied right now. They're 1-1. So I'm not highly concerned. It's all the series right now is 1-1. So it's just all series are tied right now. So I'm not overly concerned. And it is the playoffs. Yeah, exactly. AOG 34. I mean, it's Yankee Nation. He says, let's relax. I mean, this is the playoffs, and it is the playoffs. I mean, once the playoffs hits, you know, every team is 0-0, and the mentality and the atmosphere changes, you know, and it's anybody who's in the postseason, it's anybody's game, really. It's anybody's game. Anything could happen at any given moment. Razil, I mean, that's the hope, you know, because this season their away record 50. They were 50-31. They had a fantastic away record, so let's hope that they can do the same in tomorrow's game. Yeah, I don't know what it is about the Yankees playing better this season away from the stadium. I don't get it, because usually their road record is not as good as their home record, but this season is a different story. And I really don't understand why, but it is what it is, folks. It is what it is. The main thing for me is just the Yankees bats. They need to make the best of their opportunities. They know how to get guys on base. They have runners in scoring position. They have the capability to attack early, but they don't score early. And that's a constant problem for this Yankees team, especially with, you know, having runners on first and second or second and third, bases loaded. They don't execute when they're supposed to. You know, there's been games where there's just been like a lot of rally killers, but you know, there's also games where the bats have performed well, and they look like the bats that we know, that, you know, these are our expectations, but sometimes they just don't come through, you know. But it is what it is, you know. Let's see what they do tomorrow, right? Yankees game. There's no Yankees game today, but there is baseball games today on the National League side. So, you know, Dodgers, Padres, Mets, Phillies. So make sure you guys go watch those games. And, you know, hopefully those two games are going to be great, especially Mets and Phillies. I feel like that's going to be a very back and forth. So I'm looking forward to that game today. Let's see what happens with the Mets and Padres. So that'll also not the Mets and Padres, the Padres and Dodgers. Excuse me, the Padres and Dodgers. That's the Padres smashed the Dodgers. The Padres smashed the Dodgers on Sunday, and that was a beating. So let's see what happens in today's games. Today's games are going to be fun. Let's see what happens tomorrow. I will be live for the pregame tomorrow afternoon. So the Yankees do play the Royals game 3 in Kansas City. I will go live for the pregame. I hope to see all of you there. But I am going to close it out here. Thank you all for tuning in. I do appreciate every single one of you jumping on. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you guys enjoyed our guest, my guest, Howie Karpin. I definitely plan on having him on again in the future, probably sometime in the off season, just to maybe conclude the postseason and then talk a little bit about free agency and whatnot. So let's see, let's see what the Yankees do in the postseason. That's what we got to worry about first. But thank you all for coming on. I do greatly appreciate it. You guys and gals that are out there are amazing. Make sure you all hit that like button, hit that subscribe, share this channel out with everyone you know. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's continue growing this channel out, folks. Let's continue growing this channel out. I do appreciate all of you. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.